Hello. Welcome to another Mars Day. It is May the 9th, 2023. This is a Patreon only weekly virtual space where we come on and talk about the astrology of the week ahead, pull some tarot. You can ask your questions, share what you're moving through, or just generally hang out. They are recorded. So if you're here live or if you're watching on the recording, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you being in this space. And I hope that these are helpful in some way, whether it's these actual Mars Day meetup video spaces or the tarot card that comes through at the end or in its own post. Side note, I had Mercury retrograde things that happened last week and I didn't get the tarot of the week up. Did anybody notice? Did anybody miss it? Is that something that isn't helpful? Is helpful? Let me know. I did post the pictures on social media, but I didn't get the full post up on Patreon this week. So Mercury things. So I'm just gonna start again by appreciating you being here, live or in the replay. I'm going to take time to set the intention of our container today. We're going to start by just checking in with the energy from last week, stuff that we're moving through as we come into this new week, into the middle of May. And then we'll get into the overview of the energy for the week ahead. And then we'll go through the day by day, and then we'll do the tarot at the end. So, yeah. So thank you for being here. I'm going to pause, make some space to build the container today. And then I'll come back and I'm open to hearing anything that has come up for you, anything that came up for you last week that you'd like to throw into the container, anything that you're looking at astrologically in your own chart or in the transits, stuff that you're moving through. Anything is welcome here. On mic if you're here live, or in the comments if you're watching the replay. I'd love to hear what we're moving through. So I'm going to take just a moment to pause, set the container, and then I'll be back and we'll chat some more, but I'll go ahead and throw up the tarot card from last week. And then I shall return in just a minute after I finish kind of building the space and calibrating myself, and then we'll get into the week ahead. Okay, so last week was busy. Up on the screen, I have the transits, the main transits that we talked about for last week. This is what we moved through. There was a lot. We had Mercury retrograde happening. We had the Mercury Cazimi, Pluto station retrograde. We had the lunar eclipse. And we also had Venus squaring Neptune and then moving into Cancer, all happening last week. So this week, over the weekend and coming into the beginning of this week, is really about kind of recalibrating, finishing anything that came up under the eclipse. Remember that eclipses take longer, right? So maybe things came up last week that we aren't really going to be moving through for a couple more weeks or something. But we're out of like the heart of eclipse energy. It'll linger for the next few weeks. And then when we have the Taurus new moon, we'll officially be out of like the eclipses, but we'll still be dealing with whatever has come up eclipse related in our own experience or in the experience of those we're in relationship with. So yeah, so I just wanted to pop this here. If anybody has questions, comments, things they want to share, stuff that they're moving through, feel free to do so. If you're here live, feel free to chime into the chat or come off mic. If you're watching in the replay, I always like to hear what you're moving through as well. So feel free to pop out into the comments and tell me what you have going on. And then we'll get into what we have this week happening, which is a whole another frame of energy. Okay. So it is May 9th. This week, we're going to be talking about the energy from May 9th, which is Tuesday, Mars Day, through May 15th, which is Moon Day. And really, there's two main things. There's two main transits that happen this week that I'm looking at. And then I'm also looking at some of the background energy that's happening. So we know we're in eclipse season. We've talked about it. We know we're in Mercury retrograde. This week kicks off with today, actually. There's an exact transit, which is the Sun conjunct Uranus. So this is the Uranus cazimi, similar to how we had the Mercury cazimi last week. A cazimi is any time that a planet comes into a conjunction with the sun and it moves through what is known as the heart of the sun. It starts its new cycle and it burns off anything that is no longer needed in that planet cycle. So with Uranus is the great liberator. It wants us to be free. It wants us to innovate. It wants us, to be liberated and to rebel against things that hold us back and oppress us and the people that we care about, our fellow humans, etc. So with Uranus in a conjunction with the sun this week, today exactly, but we've been feeling it. It was amplified under the Scorpio eclipse last week. And then today it moves through the heart of the sun. And so what it's doing collectively, we can see playing out. What it's doing in our own experiences, though, we can tap into a little bit more intimately by thinking about what it is that's holding us back from being free. Right, as Uranus moves through the heart of the sun has the ability to burn off anything that's keeping us oppressed in our own experience. Remembering that we can't do anything about what's happening systematically. We can, but we can't right now. Right. So when I talk about transits and I talk about things using astrology, I try to turn it inward, recognizing that there's only so much we can do externally. If we can allow ourselves and teach ourselves and move through this experience of like being a safe space for ourselves, then what's happening in the exterior world is not going to stop happening and it's not going to stop being shitty, but we have a safety and a security within our own experience. So shitty things are going to happen in the world. It's already happening. Many of us are feeling it on multiple levels and have been for years, lifetimes, etc. And what this conjunction allows for are breakthroughs around thoughts that keep us held in the past, around actions that are keeping us from being our best selves, right? So sometimes we pick up coping mechanisms and things throughout our life that have kept us safe. And when Uranus moves through the heart of the sun, it allows us, I heard on Astrology Hub, someone once referenced this as when Uranus moves through the heart of the sun, it's like a rocket. And when a rocket gets so far, its boosters pop off, right? And it has to release something in order to continue to move, to continue to evolve or go on its journey, right? And then it has another set of boosters that kind of comes into play. And so there's things as a planet moves through the heart of the sun that are ready to come off. And when Uranus moves through the heart of the sun, which is happening this week, we are able to pop off some of those boosters, some of the things that we've learned to use as coping mechanisms that maybe don't fit into our life anymore, right? Maybe now they've become habitual, but they're actually holding us back. And remembering that we also have Mercury retrograde stationing this week. So that's the other main thing that's happening this week. We have the Uranus cazimi with the sun. And then we also have Mercury that's stationing retrograde. It'll station, it's stationing direct on the 14th, which is Sunday. But all week, it's moving very slowly. And so when Mercury, first of all, is still backwards, it's still moving backwards, which already turns our mercurial things inward. And then it's moving very slowly because it's starting to station. And so when a planet moves slowly, its impact becomes, it can become stronger or feel more loud or more chaotic in some ways. And so we can feel that as Mercury is stationing in the sky all week, slowing down to station direct on the 14th, and then be direct on the 15th. So we're feeling Mercury and Uranus. I've talked about this before, but when Mercury and Uranus are together, when they're both activated in the sky, it can really indicate nervous system things in our own experience. So tending to your nervous system, being out in nature, making sure that you're allowing yourself time, you're, giving yourself enough water and you're feeding yourself, all of these things that help support our nervous system, are important when Mercury and Uranus are both activated in the sky. And that's happening now. And the invitation is to move slowly. Uranus is, it's abrupt. It can be shocking. It can be surprising. It can make us want to bolt out to freedom. That energy is available this week because we also have Jupiter that's at the end of Aries, and it's amping up too, right? Jupiter at the end of the Aries feels like it has to get something done. It must do something right now, right? Whatever the next adventure is or the next phase, Jupiter at the end of Aries wants it to get done because it feels like if I don't do it now, I'm never going to have the chance to do it. But then Jupiter's going to dip into Taurus, where it can actually materialize things. So the feeling that you may feel this week and this weekend into even next week of, I have to go right now, I'm never going to have this chance again, is most likely coming from this Uranus and Sun and Jupiter at the end degrees of Aries and Mercury stationing retrograde. But remembering we have so many planets in Taurus, Jupiter's coming into Taurus, so we have time and things will slow. It's just this amping up period that can, and again, nervous system. So tending to your nervous system can help in supporting that process. Okay, let me check into the chat. Yeah, so travel plans over the weekend with Mercury stationing, here's the thing. It happens all the time, so maybe nothing happens. My invitation is to leave for the airport a little bit earlier. Make sure that you have backup options to get your tickets, right? Take what you need with you. If you have medication, don't put it in the overnight bag, take it with you, stuff like that. So that if your bag gets lost or you get delayed or Mercury things, right? So you just plan for it, right? Just give yourself a little bit more time, right? The other thing is that maybe it just happens anyway and you're just late, and then you say, God dang it, Mercury retrograde. Right? So sometimes it just happens, and just having the awareness can kind of take the sting out of it a little bit. Still might be frustrating, and also maybe nothing happens, right? But that would be my invitation, is just give yourself a little bit more buffer around the scheduling, the planning, the timing, That kind of stuff with Mercury retrograde seems to be the issue most times. So yeah, can't wait to hear how it goes. The other thing is, if you're going for a wedding, it's a super cute time. Honestly, there's a lot of sextiles and trines that are happening outside of like Mercury stationing. It's a really sweet time for like flirty love. Venus on the 13th, Venus trines Saturn. We'll get into all of this, but for a wedding, that's a really cute weekend, honestly. So yeah, sending love. That's hopefully all goes well, and could be yeah, a cute weekend for you. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so main hits this week: Sun conjunct Uranus. That's happening today, the 9th, exactly. But we've been feeling it since last week, since the eclipse, because Uranus was only 3 degrees away from the eclipse. So we've been feeling this build, but it's exact today. And then by the end of the week, it will have kind of lessened as we start to have Mercury really spinning at that same 5 degree of Taurus spot. All right, so we're going to go through the day by day, but I just wanted to give the kind of overview of the big hits of stuff that we're looking at this week. My big invitation, still same as it has been for the last couple of weeks, is take care of your nervous system. That's going to be the best way for you to be able to show up in your own alignment, because otherwise it can be really unsteady, really unstable, and that can lend to a lot of different things. The Sun Uranus can also be a beautiful time for innovation and breakthroughs, reigniting or electrifying some kind of spark within you. And it really depends on how you jive with this energy. If you're somebody who likes things calm and stable, this can things this week could feel abrupt, or even last week could feel abrupt and unsteady, and that might not feel good for you. If you're somebody that likes things to be exciting and changing and all of this stuff, then it could be exhilarating for you to feel this energy, right? If you're not on that side of the spectrum, then it could be scary to feel or to have this Uranus energy kind of up in the air, right? So it can be exciting, it can be scary. It really all depends on how you jive with this energy, which can change day to day, right? So be patient with yourself, and really just astrology for awareness. Just know what is in the energy, what is in the weather for the cosmos this week, so you can adjust and shift where able. All right, blah 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 blah. Let's get into the chart a bit. If you have questions, comments, concerns about anything so far, as always, please feel free to share them in the chat, on the mic. If you're here in the replay, pop out, share them in the comments. Oh, one thing that I did want to mention that I didn't earlier is that, sorry, I'll take that off of there because it is bright in my eyes, is that this month on the 19th, which is the Taurus new moon, I'm going to be doing a free astrology workshop offering. I've posted about it on Facebook mostly. But it's free, and it'll be available to anybody on the Patreon as well. I'll post the stuff on Patreon as it gets closer. But I sent out the initial email for it for the people that have signed up previously. It went out yesterday. So this week's moon gathering will actually be that workshop in lieu of it. And then it'll be available for replay as well for anybody that can't make it to the live. It's going to be May 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. It is Venus's day, Friday. Yeah, for a lot of reasons that we won't go into here, but just wanted to pop that into this space, that's going to be happening this month as well. Okay, back to the charts. All right, so I have an Aries rising chart. The houses here don't matter, so you're going to overlay it to your chart, and I'm going to talk about what I mean by that a little bit more in depth here in a little bit. But the first thing that we see, maybe if I can get the, sorry, okay. All right, so the first thing that we're looking at this week is what we've already been talking about. It's that Sun conjunction to Uranus, and you can see right now they're both at 18 degrees of Taurus. They're about 15 minutes of arc away. And so in our own chart, let me actually just pull up my chart. So 18 degrees of Taurus is where this conjunction is happening. So again, not everybody's going to feel this, that if this isn't hitting anything or activating anything in your own chart, then this might be nothing for you. But maybe it is activating somebody else's chart that you're in relation to. So just knowing that the themes are available collectively can help you moving through, even if it isn't hitting you specifically. But Uranus, Taurus, the Taurus part of our chart has been very activated the last couple years, honestly. So yeah, so you may already kind of know, or once you tap into the themes of this house, you might be like, oh yeah, I've been moving through that stuff for a while, because of a lot of things. All right, so when I say the Sun Uranus conjunction is happening at 18 degrees of Taurus, it's going to depend on your own chart. And you're like, I don't know what that means. So here's my chart. So if I were looking for that, how that Taurus conjunction is playing out in my own chart, I would look for Taurus, which the sign for Taurus is right here. But it's a circle with like a little horn or a U on top of it. So that's the Taurus sign. So you're going to look for that in your own birth chart, and you're going to see where 18 degrees of Taurus falls for you. So my Taurus house is the 5th house in whole house signs, and 18 degrees is right about midway of that house for me. So I know that this conjunction at 18 degrees of Taurus with the Sun and Uranus, which if I layer them, now you can see here on the outside, right? But if I'm not layering it and you don't see that, you just know 18 degrees of Taurus, you find the Taurus house in your chart, you find where 18 degrees would be. Each of the houses is 30 degrees. So 18 degrees is just a little over halfway. So I don't have any planets specifically at 18 degrees of Taurus. So this conjunction isn't hitting any of my planets exactly, none of my major placements exactly. So it might not be super, super jolting for me, but I feel a lot of the energies, whether they are real in your face or very subtle. I feel them in different ways. Some people do, some people don't, right? Some people are going to feel almost every transit, right? And some people won't feel a transit or be aware of it or have conscious awareness of it ever their whole life, ever, right? And that's okay. So there's a spectrum of ways that you can engage with this energy. So first you're going to find 18 degrees of Taurus in your chart, found it. No 18 degrees placements. I don't even have really anything within the vicinity. The closest thing that I have is this 15-degree Pluto, and it was activated by the Scorpio eclipse that happened last week at 15-ish degrees, 14, 15 degrees of Scorpio. So that Pluto has already been activated. So this will be a continuation of that. And so I would look at themes for the 5th house. So the 5th house is stuff like creativity, creative endeavors, joy, our children, all kinds of different stuff. And we can go to the house wheel for that. But, so what I've been feeling under this Sun conjunction to Uranus in my 5th house of Taurus are ways to incorporate joy into my days is one of the things, and big innovation and shifts in the way that I want to show up in creation. Both of those things have been activated for me and many other things. But that's one of the things that I felt very strongly within the last few days. And it's a longer theme that's been playing out with eclipses, right? Taurus and Scorpio have had the eclipses there for about a year and a half now. So that's been a process that this conjunction with the Sun and Uranus at 18 degrees is just a continuation of probably things that have already been feeling like you've been moving through. This is, a breakthrough. So if we've been feeling stuck, Taurus is a fixed sign. So if you've been feeling stuck with anything, whether it's physical limitations, barriers, etc., this is a really good time for breakthroughs to happen in one way or another, right? In one way or another. It's not necessarily going to be a breakthrough that feels good and supportive right out of the jump. But knowing what I know about how the astrology is going to move, Jupiter coming into this space shortly after gives some aid and some support and some relief to what we're feeling now, in more like deep and philosophical and deep meaning ways, as the weeks move on. But okay, I don't know if that little thing was helpful. Hope it was. That's like my theme for Mercury retrograde. I can never tell if what I'm saying is making any sense or if it's helpful. But yeah, that's just Mercury retrograde things for me, especially. Okay, so we have it happening 18, 19 degrees of Taurus. We're feeling it until about Wednesday or Thursday. Where are we resisting change? Where have things felt stuck? Where are we looking for a breakthrough? And how can we show up our identity, our will, our purpose in life? How can we show up for ourselves in this new and liberating ways, right? As we move forward, how can we try something new this week that aligns with ourself in deep ways? Remembering that the sun is our consciousness, our will, our identity, and Uranus is the great liberator, the great awakener, and the rebel, right? It's bringing innovation and breakthroughs to how we show up in our consciousness and in our identity and that of those that we're in relationship with. Okay, so that's the main thing that we're feeling. Notice that the moon is here in Capricorn today. It's, moon in Capricorn is concerned about stability, which leads us actually into what's happening later in the week. So we have a lot of Saturn and a lot of Venus and a lot of Mercury retrograde that happens later in the week. And what that means is we may have a lot of thoughts around stability and a lot of thoughts around how to make the life that we want to live sustainable and able, like how can we show up in different ways or shift responsibilities in ways that feel supportive and stable and secure, right? And Mercury retrograde in Taurus, the sign of stability, right? So Venus likes to talk about security, right? It rules finances, it rules our material assets and materialistic things in general, the material realm. Saturn is about our stability and our structures. And then we have this Capricorn moon ruled by Saturn, again, really wanting us to focus on the material realm, how to kind of stabilize. And then we have Mercury retrograde stationing, moving very slowly, thinking about all the things that it has redone and rethought through and reassessed as it's been moving retrograde the last few weeks. And so all of this really lending us the energy to be able to slow down and think about our plans, think about how to organize, how to take our next steps, right? So we have on the 11th, so sorry, gotta move my thing out of the way. All right, so sorry, let's not skip this because this day's a little moony. So on Wednesday the 10th, we have the moon making some pretty difficult aspects. So Wednesday could be a hard, emotional, internal day. It's going to hit an opposition to Mars in Cancer, and then it's also going to have a conversation building into this conjunction with Pluto that happens later in the day. So this is going to be about transforming our emotions, transforming our internal experience in some way. As it hits this opposition to Mars midday on Wednesday, it can feel loud. Our emotions opposite its home, right? So the moon in Capricorn is as far away from its home of Cancer as it can get. Mars in its fall is in Cancer, the moon's home. And so there's this tension when there's an opposition between the moon and Mars. Mars is feeling moody and broody in Cancer. It doesn't like to be there. It doesn't want to feel the emotions. It just wants to move through to the next adventure, to the next thing. But there's this opposition with the moon in Capricorn, this like internal frustration of our needs, our internal needs not being met or not feeling secure in our emotional experience in some way. And then after that opposition, it comes into a conjunction with Pluto, and that conjunction with Pluto can ask us to transform our internal experience into something else, right? So Pluto, the planet of transformation, right? Always wanting to turn the rock over and make something new or find something else, dig through the shadows, come up with the gold that comes from doing the work of transforming our internal emotions. And so the 10th can be a little bit of a heavy emotional day, and it leads us into Wednesday, and we have Venus. So this is the first week where Venus is in Cancer. So you can see now Venus on this day, the 11th, on Thursday, Venus is at 4 degrees of Cancer, and it's in a conversation, coming into a conversation with the North Node. So that happens maybe while you're asleep. It depends on where you are in the world. But there's an alignment with Venus, our desires, and how we relate to life as a human being, in a conversation with our soul, our North Node, our karmic evolution, how we're moving through the world, how we're aligning. And so pay attention on Thursday, even on Wednesday night into Thursday, paying attention to any like intuitive hits that you get, any kind of nudges that you feel around your desire or relation is important to notice on the 11th, because that's a direct conversation with Venus and the North Node. And this is like our fate, our destiny, right? So just paying attention to that, like more subtle internal spiritual nudges on the 11th. And then on the 12th, the 12th is a significant day as well, as far as giving us a little bit of support. So by Friday, the 12th, we have Mercury retrograde's doing a couple things on this day. So you can tell that Mercury here is at 6 degrees of Taurus. It's almost at its station degree. It's moving very slowly. And when a planet moves slowly, especially Mercury, one that is, really the vehicle that we use to communicate with others and our surroundings in so many different ways, it's an invitation to go slow. It's having two different conversations on this day. The first one it's having is with Saturn here at 6 degrees. So Mercury has a sextile, which is a flowing, dynamic conversation with Saturn in the morning on the 12th. And this is the ability to get things organized, sorting through some things, strategizing, planning. We have Mercury, which is the planner, the person who can organize, with Saturn, who likes to build structures and build foundations and to-do lists and those kinds of things. So this is available on Friday, a day to really kind of get some more tedious tasks done around the planning of something. This is also a really good time to implement boundaries in new ways. Mercury, the way that we communicate, stationing, it's heavy and it's strong here in a conversation with Saturn. So there may be things that come up around our boundaries as well. But generally, it's a decent transit as long as we're moving slowly, remembering that Mercury is still retrograde here and it's stationing, so it can start to feel a little bit bumpy. It's getting more powerful. And so want to take it slowly, right? Saturn also wants to take things slowly. So trying to anchor into that, because Jupiter by this time is at 29 degrees of Aries. So this is a very different energy than what Saturn and a retrograde Mercury say slow down. Jupiter at 29 degrees of Aries says, I have to do it right now or I'm never going to get to do it. Which again, remember, is that 29th crisis anaretic degree. It feels critical to do it right now, right? So just checking in with like how true that is in your own experience, right? Some people, it will be an emergency, life or death, got to move, right? And that's something that you know in your own experience. I can't tell you that just by looking at this, right? Like we could look at your chart and do other things for it, but just by looking at this, it can show up a lot of different ways. But know that sometimes it's and many times it will just feel like I have to do it now, right? Because it's that 29th degree, which makes us feel that way. And it's also coming into a square to Pluto, which we'll talk about next week. But we're already feeling that. It's very close already within a degree. So but yeah, the 12th, there's a lot of ability for structure and planning and doing some strategizing, just remembering to go slow where able. And then later, as Mercury continues to move backwards and Venus is moving forwards, they come into a sextile as well. Venus in watery Cancer, brings a little bit of nourishment. This can be another good time for this is actually really cute for like socializing. If you're looking to like go on a date, keeping it light. Again, Mercury is stationing, but this is a good time for speaking up for yourself or standing up for yourself, or even maybe doing some like mirror affirmations. This is a really good time to like boost yourself up or boost up other people. This is a really good time for justice, advocacy work, any of that. Venus in Cancer really wants to protect the people that they love. And so being in a sextile to Mercury can give us the ability to have good conversations, be able to speak our mind in positive ways. Remembering though that depending on how Mercury retrogrades are for you, like I know for me, my mind's still going to be a little bit blurry, so I can maybe speak up for myself, but it may be difficult for me to find the exact words that I'm looking for. But if Mercury retrograde doesn't have that effect on you, then this could just be a great time to like go out, be flirty, have a good time, be social, be with other people, etc. And that takes us into the weekend, which, again, we have, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but we have now Venus and Saturn. Venus is now at 6 degrees by Saturn's day, and it's in a harmonious trine. Sorry, I don't know if I said this, but I meant Venus is at 6 degrees of Cancer by this time, and it's in a harmonious trine to Saturn and the moon that has now moved into Pisces by Saturn's day. The moon is here conjunct Saturn, and it's in a trine to Venus. I love this. I love this aspect. I think it's really stabilizing for relationships and for financial conversations. If you've been worried about stuff from the eclipse, if things have come up, this is a really good time by Saturday to have sorted through some of the plans, right? Maybe had some innovative ideas earlier this week with the Sun and Uranus, and then those sextiles with Mercury retrograde the last few days leading into the weekend, allowing for some stability around strategizing and planning and making lists and making decisions and having socially kind of interactions. And then on this day, there's a stabilizing that happens with this conjunction. Again, the moon is here, so our emotions are involved, tying us back to some of that eclipse stuff as well. In a harmonious conversation with Venus, how we relate to the world, our finances, our security, our material resources, and so much more. In a conversation with Saturn, which is long-standing foundations. It builds the structure. This allows us to really center into recognizing why we're moving slowly, right? Again, Jupiter still at 29 degrees, still amping up that energy of it has to be done right now. This allows us to anchor into why we're taking it slowly. why it's important to move slowly and consistently to build something that is long standing, right? This is a really good day for building some kind of structure, whether it's a creative something around something creative, right? Around something spiritual. This is water, around a relationship, water, right? How we relate to ourselves, how we relate to something else in our life. Again, going to depend on where it all plays out in your chart, but this Saturn's day aspect I love for a lot of different things. But yeah. So I love it, especially for internal shifts and things that we're doing internally. Collectively, mundane astrology, it can show up a little bit more difficultly, right? Saturn is not well placed here in Pisces. And Mars is present in Cancer. So it can show up a little bit volatile in the collective. But in our own internal experience, there's enough kind of keeping us in check. As far as this specific transit, that's not going to be the one causing the internal struggle. Remember, nursing our nervous system is the invitation to be able to really lean into these sextiles and trines. Otherwise, our nervous system can kind of override the rest of the experience and put us into fight or flight mode. And then it doesn't feel as accessible to lean into the sextiles and the trines for the support and the stability of the restructuring, if that makes sense. All right, so that is Saturn's day. And then we move again to now Sunday. The moon is mid Pisces on this day. And, Jupiter still at 29 degrees. We're still kind of feeling the Venus Saturn stuff. We have Mercury now that is stationing on this day. It's at 5 degrees. It officially turns later in the day. So the 15th is our day of Mercury out of retrograde, but it's stationing direct here on Sunday. So could be very loud. So again, just buffering for the mix-ups in schedules, the time stuff, double check that you have your times right, you have your time zones correctly, all of that stuff. Any travel plans, just double checking what that looks like. And then that's pretty much it. We're just kind of feeling the debris of the other stuff. And then here on Moon Day on the 15th, we have the moon that has moved into Aries. And we have, now you see Mercury is no longer purple, so it has stationed at 5 degrees. And we still have Jupiter at the 29th degree, really tick, 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 because then the next day, Jupiter will move into Taurus on the 16th, which is where we pick up next week. But the other thing that we feel on this day is we have Mars at 27 degrees of Cancer in another trine. So trines are normally sign to sign, but they're harmonious or flowing energies. So Mars is in this flowing conversation with Neptune. They're very different energies, but this is good to work on your spiritual connection. This reminds me of a conversation about the ego that I often have. And my husband often reminds me in conversation that with my own stuff, that ego isn't the issue, right? We don't want to get rid of our ego. Our ego is very important to have. It's just finding what a healthy ego is for us. And this transit of Neptune and Mars in a trine allows us to come into what a healthy ego is for us. What is our ego showing us? And how can we connect with our ego and allow it to bring us into a more spiritual place? Like what is the meshing between the Mars and the Neptune in our experience? How do they work together? Mars, the ego, the body, and Neptune, the ethers, the other worlds, everything being connected, right? Two very different energies that are working together on this day at 27 degrees of Pisces and Cancer. So again, going to feel this differently, but this is really good for creative stuff. This is very inspiring. Yeah, And it can also be very, you could come into contact with people that want to gaslight you, for many different reasons. But generally, for our own experience, we want to lean into this as creativity, as a way for us to understand our ego, as a way for us to understand how we do, how we can shift our boundaries to take care of our body, Mars, or our energetic experience, Neptune. This is also about moving with compassion and the magic of our actions, right? Neptune being magic and Mars being our actions. So different ways of connecting to that here, but it can be very inspiring to whatever that process is that we've been moving through and we're coming into in this new week. And then, like I said, the following day is where we'll pick up. But we see here in the morning at 9:30 a.m., Jupiter is at 29 degrees, 57 minutes. So just a couple hours later, Jupiter will be into Taurus. And I'm excited for that shift, even though it will be squaring Pluto. I think as Jupiter gets into about 5 degrees and hits that place where Mercury is now, I think we'll be in a different kind of landscape. And I think we'll all be feeling a little bit differently than we have been the last couple of weeks by that point. And that happens over the next few weeks. There's a lot of shifts that are happening, right? So again, let me get this off of here. So there's a lot of shifts that are happening. It can feel unsteady still. At the beginning of this week. As we get towards the end of the week, things are going to settle down a little bit. Things, not fully. We're still in the midst of a lot of stuff, like we still have a lot of things happening externally, but internally, there's some ability for a little bit of a slowdown, a little bit of a shift that happens internally. In our experience with those sextiles and those trines, a little bit of stability coming with Saturn. Venus is decently placed in Cancer, so really allowing us to tap into what Venus is in our experience and how Venus can show up to support us, because remember, Venus rules Taurus. So that means that Venus in Cancer is ruling over all of the planets that are currently in Taurus, which is this Sun conjunction to Uranus that we're feeling. It's also the Mercury retrograde. It's also when Jupiter moves into Taurus, all of that being ruled by this Venus. And so, nourishing your relationship to Venus can be helpful as it's ruling over so much. And it's moving into its little chase with, it's in its chase with Mars already. So yeah, so connecting to Venus might be helpful this week. And there was a question from a patron that I do plan to get a video out for this week around planetary days, how to work with planets. And so hopefully I'll get that out to you within the next couple days so that you'll have that to work with as well. But yeah, so that's the week. It's a decent, astrological week as far as like internal stuff, but keeping in mind that, the world is a lot right now. And it's hard. And so anchoring into what our desires are and how we can make sure that our actions are aligning with those has been something that we've been talking about for the past couple of months, getting us to this point. Back in March, we had all of these planets moving through, and I remember saying back then that by the time we get to May, we're really coming into a different landscape. And here we are coming into that different landscape, and things are shifting and things are moving for a lot of people. And again, if you're not feeling this in your own life, it's just because your stuff isn't getting amplified right now. But people that you're in relationship with probably are feeling this stuff and moving through a lot of really heavy things. And so just having the awareness that even if you're not feeling it specifically, other people in the cosmos definitely are in other ways, and it can feel unsteady and scary. And so when you're coming into relation, again, Venus relates. So when Venus is coming into relation, Venus is in Cancer now. So being able to bring compassion and empathy, and care to those conversations can be very helpful. And even when those conversations are with self, right? Self-compassion and grace for ourselves and those kinds of things, can be helpful as we move forward. Okay. So that's the astrology. I'm going to pause and we're going to look to the tarot. And I'm going to do a tarot card for the week ahead, like I always do. And then I'm going to do a little oracle just for patrons. I won't post that one publicly. So we'll do 2 cards today and then we'll pop out of here. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything that you're moving through that you want to share in the chat, if you're live and want to come off mic, either way, if you're watching on the replay and you want to pop out and add to the comments, please feel free to do so. And then I'll be back and we'll do a little bit of tarot. Okay. So we're going to start with the tarot for the week ahead. And again, this is May 9th through May 15th, 2023. This is a tarot card for the week ahead, part of guidance and support as we move through this week, specifically for the people that are here live and watching on the replay. A card for the week of guidance and support as we move through the cosmic energy, Mercury stationing, Sun conjunct Uranus, Venus and Saturn and Mercury working to stabilize and restructure. Okay. All right, so I invite you to breathe. Ground and center in whatever way you feel necessary or accessible to receive messages today. The messages that come forward to you can, but do not have to relate to anything that we've talked about thus far today. This is a way for you to come into contact and connection with your own intuition, to hear what is coming up for you intuitively and organically. So it's the Page of Cups card. Page of Cups. And I will post a picture of this later on Patreon as well. Feel free to take as much time with this card as you feel necessary. If you're watching on the replay, you can pause as we get into the Oracle card. Okay. So this is a deck that I actually don't use often, the one that we just used. I really like it. I just haven't gotten a chance to use it enough to use it in readings for other people. So happy to be able to use it here with y'all. Okay. So the next card that we're going to pull is a card for the week. And this I'm not going to post publicly, so this one's just for patrons. And it is the Wild Whiskers Oracle. And this is, again, just a card of guidance and support for your week ahead. Folks that are here on the Mars Day meetup live and that will watch on the replay are who will see this. I will not be posting it anywhere else. So this is just for y'all. Again, taking as much time as you need to ground and center. If you're watching on the replay, you can pause it here to make space to receive any of the messages that come forward for you. So this is Proud Peacock. It says Proud Peacock, prestige, self-respect, awareness, regal bird, bursting with color, your confidence and grace, I would know. So just noticing what comes up for you organically, any resonance or resistance that you feel to the card, to the colors, to the experience in general. I specifically pause this if you don't want to hear what I'm about to say. I specifically like this for Venus in Cancer and the Sun Cazimi Uranus. Sun is our identity. Uranus is about being the fucking peacock and just being our most true, authentic self, really stepping in and owning who we are, allowing ourselves to be different and unique and proud of all of that uniqueness that we hold, right? Uranus is the rebel that doesn't know it's a rebel because it's just walking its walk. It's just doing its thing. You know, it doesn't even notice or recognize that maybe it's doing it differently. Maybe it's more innovative, or other people might see it as silly, right? But it's just Sun conjunction to Uranus is a really good time to release anything that holds us back from being our true self. You know, it's a time to liberate yourself and be proud of how you show up. That's what I see and feel organically when I look at the card, but there's so much else that is here. Just the words in general, you can take these words, journal about them, think about them, sit with them this week. Prestige, self-respect, awareness, right? Regal bird, bursting with grace, your confidence and grace, I would know. So these are the cards for the week. Page of Cups, Proud Peacock. I'm excited to sit with the Page of Cups a little bit as I think about the week ahead astrology and see how that filters in. I was a little bit surprised when I saw it, so I'm excited to do my own work with it as well. There's so much with the Page of Cups as well. So, okay, but can we look at like the tails, the swoopy, just the flowiness of it all? Okay. Anyway. I appreciate you being here. It's another week. I'm happy to be in community with you. We'll chat soon. Bye for now.